Hey, this is Kyle. Thanks for coming back and joining us for the third in our series of marketing basics videos. Today we're going to be talking about conducting research. That's the first step of an integrated marketing plan. I will be breaking these into subparts, so there's multiple videos in part 3. I just want to make sure that they're smaller, easy to digest chunks so you can get the information quickly and get to work on your integrated plans. As always, if you have any questions, reach out to me, and the information is to the right on the side of the screen. So let's get started talking about research. When I worked at ad agencies in the past, I would sometimes get to see other agencies presenting. So you could see the kind of work they were doing, the approach they would take when trying to win the business of the client. And I noticed there were a number of agencies that would come in with amazing creative work, but they didn't really tell a story about why they were doing the campaign in the first place. They wouldn't get up, they wouldn't demonstrate how they knew the client or what the client's challenge was. They would just dive right into execution. And that's a big part of why some of the agencies that I worked for would win most of the time they were competing for business. They took the time to do that research and really demonstrate to the client that their money would be well spent, that we do understand them, and we can make sure that the work that we'll be doing is relevant and will move the needle for them. I think you need to do that same thing as students. You need to believe that research is not just a step that you need to check off the list and get done with, but it's well worth your time to really understand who your client is, really understand the situation. Doing that will set you apart and will help you drive business. So it's a really big part of how you can advance your career, how you can help your business grow its revenue. It cannot be underlined enough about just how important that is to be successful. Okay, the next point I want to make about is utilizing quality sources. I can't tell you how many students will turn in papers or presentations, and every single source is from Wikipedia. It's ridiculous. It's not that Wikipedia is inherently a bad thing. It's just Wikipedia is crowdsourced. So some of the information on it's good, and a lot of the information on it is bad or inaccurate. I'm not saying you shouldn't use Wikipedia, but I think a smart idea would be, if you're going there, look down at the list of sources at the bottom and then go check out the original sources and find out, is this a legitimate source? Is it information being presented correctly in the context that it was meant to be? Try to understand what's actually going on, and just assuming that whatever you find on the internet is automatically correct. And even if you're using a quality source, say you go to U.S. News and World Report, you found a New York Times article. These are some really good mainstream newspapers, magazines, but just because they have quality, it doesn't mean that the information that's being presented in this particular article is relevant to what you're talking about in your paper. I find a lot of students will just put information out there because it's on topic. They're finding things that are related to their client, the industry, but it's not really helping to better understand the situation that will be leading to the marketing campaign that you'll be conducting. So think about that. It's not just about getting quality sources, it's making sure that it's contextually relevant. I'm always asking students to share quotations and specific details that they can attribute back to their sources, not at the end of the presentation on the last slide, or not in just the bibliography of the paper, but in the paper itself. I want to see which ideas are sourced from other people. And a lot of people are afraid to do that because they're going to think, well, then it's plagiarism, or I am not thinking of my own original ideas and I won't get a great grade. But in fact, good academic scholars are always sourcing each other. They're always looking for references, because it means that your idea, your opinions, are supported by other people that are experts in the field. It gives you credibility as a speaker or a writer. So you want to celebrate the idea of using others' work, as long as you're making sure to properly credit them. The final and most important step on this slide is just making sure that your research is building towards clear insights and next steps. I think one of the reasons that research is so frustrating for students is it's sometimes hard to think about, well, what should I include? And I've got all these different ideas, but like, I don't know, should I put this first? Should I put that? It's hard to sometimes think about how do the ideas connect to each other. I think one of the best things that you can do is start with an outline. Put things not in a paragraph form, but just put your ideas down on a sheet of paper and then try to highlight them, find connections between them, organize them sentence by sentence. So all the ideas are kind of like grouped together. And ideally, as you're going through your presentation or your paper, one idea builds on the next, and you start to see patterns emerge, patterns that indicate, like, oh, hey, this might be a problem for the client. Maybe they should do something to solve that problem. When you're doing that kind of research, you are essentially cluing in your stakeholder, the person who's going to greenlight you moving forward with this campaign. And they're going to say, yeah, I see why we need to do this. You've built the case. Money should be spent. Time should be spent. Effort is needed. So you're hired. And that's ultimately what we're all trying to do. Okay, so beyond those generic ideas of things to think about, the last thing I want to talk about in this first part of the research videos is a framework for research. So if you have looked at that integrated marketing plan template, you've seen there are 4 main areas I want you to think about. Each one of those are going to be a follow-up video in the series. So just real quickly, this framework is, first you want to look, what's the situation analysis of your particular client, the company, the product, the service that they offer. Try to understand who they are. Then you should look at the situation analysis of their competitors, thinking about the industry, as well as thinking about marketing environment variables. Remember, those are the uncontrollable elements. Think about how those impact what's going on in the industry. The third area is understanding consumer behavior, and that's really important because in order to sell to consumers, you really need to know what are their wants and needs, and how do you make sure that you are connecting with what they want. And then finally, once you've kind of done all that research in those 3 areas, you need to think about, how do I turn that into action? And we'll talk about some specific steps you can take to do that. All right, well, thanks for joining us for the first part of research. I hope you tune into the next one. And as always, if you've got questions about the content of the video, please give me a shout. And if you got any questions about the program, don't hesitate to reach out to our program manager, Christy. Thanks for joining.